This presentation is called Work of Air, Changes in the Wind Caused by the Seasons. This is part 2. All right, so here we have a general picture of the winds on Earth. We see the sun at the equator, and this represents March and September. We see the sun at the equator, and we see the variable winds are represented by blue, and the steady winds are represented by red. Now I'm going to move this up just so we can see the rest of the chart. Okay, now that we've seen the key. All right, let's continue. So we see the sun here at the equator, and the perpendicular rays of the sun are falling on the equator right here. The blue arrows point to these variable winds, and the red point to the steady winds, which we talked about in the last presentation. And this presentation, just to jog your memory a little bit. All right, let's continue. So we can see that the steady winds right here, for the most part, are blowing from the tropics into the equator. And that is pretty much all the way across the equator, okay? And it's pretty much consistent all across the equator. So here we see variable winds blowing away from the tropic lines, and they're a little more different in terms of direction. So up here especially, look at this. These blue variable winds are going in all sorts of directions. These ones are going down, these ones are going to the side. What's going on here on the western coast of North America? Right here we have some variable winds going down and up. That's why they're variable. They are doing some different things. And down here, these variable winds, well, they are going in the same direction. So why do you think this is? Why do you think up here these variable winds are, what is causing them to go in different directions versus down here? Can you guess? You got it. There's a lot more land in the northern hemisphere than in the southern hemisphere. So there's nothing blocking this wind from going where it needs to go. So, right, let's go back to the sun. So here we see the perpendicular rays of the sun are at this, at the equator, okay? And all the steady winds are traveling towards the equator. Well, I have another chart to show you. So here, our key, I'm gonna go up here and just take a moment to look at this key on this chart. We still have our variable winds and our steady winds, so blue and red. But then we have under 1 inch, 1 to 4 inches, and over 4 inches. So this light brown is under 1 inch of rain. Light blue is 1 to 4 inches of rain, and the dark blue is over 4 inches of rain. And this is all in the month of July on average. So right here it says July. All right, so this chart, we have a little more than that last chart. We have added rainfall. So let's look at the steady winds on our map. Okay, so the steady winds are these red ones. We will start by looking here at the Pacific Ocean, which is our largest body of water on Earth. Remember what we saw on our previous map? Do we have any changes on this map from the last map? Yes, we do. Maybe you need to go back and look at that. If you need to, that's okay. You can pause the video, go back and look at the other map. But we have changes, or we don't have very many changes. Most of the things that you see here are basically the same. So we don't have many changes in the winds here. Well, let's take a look at another place where there is both land and water. So over the Pacific Ocean, there's not much change. But right here, where there is a lot of land and water, what has happened to these steady winds? Yeah, yeah, they're now drawn towards the land. Look at that. They're all going that way. Versus before, we had some going this way, being drawn towards the equator. Well, this is because the perpendicular rays of the sun are now falling here. And they're falling here over this land, this big old hunk of land, and causing the air above it to rise. And we know that hot air rises, and when that hot air rises, it creates an empty space. And when that empty space is created, air gets pulled in to fill in that empty space by that rising air. So the winds here are being pulled in towards the land. And because the winds have been blowing over all of the water, it is so full of moisture. And it drops that moisture on the land. And moisture on the land that is dropping, we see and we call rain. This is why we see this whole area here having a heavy rainfall during this time of year. Well, as we know, the perpendicular rays of the sun don't stay here at the Tropic of Cancer all year long. They move further and further south until they fall on the Tropic of Capricorn. Let's look at that. Here we have the same key, okay? Variable winds, steady winds. Under 1 inch now is the light brown. 1 to 4 inches of rain is the light blue, and dark blue is over 4 inches of rain in this month. And this month is, can I get this to move up a little? This month is January. So here we have the same key as before, and now let's look at these steady winds in the ocean again. What do we see here with the steady winds? They're basically the same. There's really basically no change. They're all going towards the equator. I mean, these kind of change to go down back towards the equator. But really, those steady winds are still going towards the equator like they always do. But again, let's check a place that has both land and water. So we're going to check this place again, all right? We can see here, or what do we see here? We see that the perpendicular rays, because they're falling here and therefore heating up the land, heating up the land closest to it, the air above the warm land is getting heated up, and the air that rises is sometimes we call that an updraft. So the air is being pulled in to fill that empty space again by this thing we call updraft. And once again, we see that the winds have turned. Okay, so before, these winds right here were being pulled that way, okay? Now they're being pulled this way because here's where the sun's rays are falling. We have the winds being pulled this way. So we see that once again, because the winds have been blowing over this water, they have picked up a lot of moisture. So now we see heavy rainfall here in the northern part of Australia. So we can say, or we can see, that this happens also when the sun is shining on the Tropic of Capricorn. So kind of flip-flopped. Before, in July, this part of the earth was covered, had a lot of rain, and this part of the earth didn't. And then they just flip-flopped as the sun's perpendicular rays moved. Well, why do you think, so I have one last question for you, okay? Why do you think that there are some places that are not getting a lot of rainfall? where are some places that are really not getting a lot of rainfall, really most times of the year? So like right here, what's going on right here that they're not getting a lot of rainfall? Or even up here, what's going on here that there is no rain? Or right here? Maybe take a closer look at those areas. Why do you think they're not getting a lot of rain? Okay, that's our lesson for today.